even if I'm not at the moment actively doing anything anti-capitalist at the moment, but just understanding that this life doesn't have to be this way, and it hasn't always been this way. And it's not that I'm looking for some kind of like utopia in which no one works. That's not realistic. That's not what I want. But I just think that there can't be only two ways of like communism or capitalism. How in a world of possibilities, with all this diversity in the world, how can there only be two forms?
Welcome to Coffee and Geography, where my guests and I geek out about the world and everything on it, discovering that we are all geographers in some way, shape or form. I'm your host, Kit, and my pronouns are they, them or she, her. So settle down with a brew, hit that subscribe or follow button, and enjoy the listen.
This podcast is sponsored by the World Energy and Meteorology Council, or WEMC for short. WEMC is an international organisation focused on weather and climate data to support energy transition, and we also work with educators. WEMC have created Teal, an easy-to-use free visualisation tool that enables you to explore climate variables for the past 70 plus years. Get started at tealtool.earth. Find us at wemcouncil.org and follow us on Twitter at wemcouncil.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Coffee and Geography, and I hope last week you enjoyed the 50th episode special, and now I'm on the running to 100 now, and what an amazing person to start this next run of 50 podcast episodes, because this is someone I've been hoping to chat to for a while. An amazing Cat Poh. Hello, Cat.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's half term, so I'm very happy not to be at work today.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling. You're not trying to catch up on work too much, are you? I hope.
Not too much. I think today is the only day I'm going to do any work, but the other days are packed.
Of course. So folks who are not of the in the UK education system, so what we have in the UK is we have a week off in the middle of semesters, if you so wish, and we call them half terms. So we all have a week off, and for once all the schools, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think all the country for the first time, or for a rare occasion, has this half term holiday aligned because of the Queen's Jubilee celebration. I'm not going to talk too much about the Queen's Jubilee for many reasons, but just to give the reason why we have our half terms all at the same time. So yeah, right. So I'm going to introduce you, and I'll tell you what, Kat, you have one of the most lovely introductions because of what you've put here, and I'm just going to let people feel this, right? Because this is amazing. So here we go, folks. Cat Poh is a geography teacher who is big on environmental philosophy, critical feminism, and Indigenous geographies. She has always felt sensitive to the environment around her, be it built or grown. Weather, climate, birds, buildings, light, and trees have always changed how Cat feels in the world, and therefore who she is in it. The shifting Cat senses, from subtle changes in the seasons, from smells of spring and sounds of swifts in the summer, have always evoked changes in her too. And being in this close relationship to the environment has made Cat curious to explore and understand it on a personal level. That's just such a lovely
Oh, it's been very poetic when I wrote that.
Yeah, it did. It seriously did come across a bit poetic. And I guess when you have such a deep connection to kind of like things that have rhythm and things that have such a, that beautiful process like nature does, I suppose it can be poetic.
Yeah, I feel like it's at once really beautiful, and this is going to sound even more waxing lyrical, but also a bit painful. I feel like being that sensitive to nature means that, not all environments are nice, and not all weather is good. Not all weather makes me feel good. So yeah, I feel in that sensitivity to my environment, there's good and there's bad, but I think that's just embracing what the world is.
You know what? This is very true, because towards the end of the last season, when I spoke to my friend Ro Proctor, they said that we were talking about kind of like autism and neurodivergency and things like that, and how we said that we both have this kind of like almost hypersensitivity when it comes to connections to nature. And I think you're right, because on one hand, it could be quite excruciating, especially when there's like human interference of nature, like, you know, cars droning and unnatural sounds and stuff like that. But then what Rose said, they said that when they go walking in, say, like a forest, they could pick up so many more sounds and nuances and things like that. And when they touch like the bark of the trees, and they just feel such this deeper connection. So yeah, I suppose you're right. It can cut both ways.
Yeah, it can be. Well, that's interesting to talk about sort of like sensory overload, because actually I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. And, you know, that also has like, you know, sensory issues there. And I also have hearing issues. And I recently had an operation back in December to improve my hearing. And that's really good because I haven't really been hearing properly since I was a child. And so I can now hear more background noise, which is really good when you're in a forest, but less good when you're in a city, where I live in London. And so hearing like the sounds of cars and planes and just like all of that has been like very overwhelming. So I guess, yeah, in that sort of sensitive, I wonder that sensitivity nature does have something to do with, you know, our ability to not be with ADHD. You can't. It's like being able to like filter different senses can be difficult with processing there. So I wonder, has that got anything to do with it?
Wow, I didn't know that about you. That's really interesting. And I mean, are you still going through? Because if you spent so long having a certain level of hearing, which is also, as you were saying, like tied to like ADHD and stuff like that, have you found that this has been a very long period of adjustment? Is it something that you have to kind of almost change the way that you kind of go about doing things? Definitely.
Like it's been a big adjustment. I had to take 2 weeks off work because I just couldn't cope with the noise. Like I had tinnitus for a bit. I think it's called like pulsular or pulsatile tinnitus, where you could literally hear your pulse. And so that's gone now, thankfully. But the first 2 weeks after getting that surgery where I could hear more, it was very difficult coping with the level of background noise. But yeah, it has been definitely an adjustment in schools. I realize how loud schools are. I mean, it has helped because I can actually hear the students at the back of the class now, instead of having to be like, excuse me, wait, what did you say? Which is what I'd usually be. And oh my gosh, when there were masks in school, it was just a nightmare. I could not. The kids would say something, I'd go, yes, interesting, because I just couldn't ask them for a third time. But yeah, so I think, you know, things like, there's adjustments like whenever there's a school bell, I just have to like plug my ears, and there are just things. But I had a hearing therapy session that the NHS organised to help me with this, and the woman basically just said, you have to get used to it, so you have to stop like wearing earplugs when you go outside. You just have to like be able to learn to process these noises. So I'm trying to microdose loud noises now and try not to plug my ears when the bell rings, which is difficult.
Microdose loud noises. This is all this insight, which is like so fascinating for me. And I guess what a lot of people don't realize. I mean, because would you classify? This may be a personal question, which of course you may well skip if you so wish, but do you classify it, or would you disclose it, say on an employer form or something, as a disability?
No, because I don't feel like it necessarily interferes that much with my working day. I mean, the surgery, like obviously I had to take 2 weeks off work, so that was a bit tricky, but that was like a one-time surgery thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's strange. I think it has changed. It's definitely changed the way I am in the world. It's really nice in a forest, but it's really made me sensitive to a city. But I'm adjusting. I'm getting there.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that with us. But that's a really fantastic insight, I think, for a lot of people, and like just another example of these seemingly small little things which seem like you just had your hearing tweaks, but then it can have this massive impact. And like Definitely. All brings again that question about accessibility. And we've got, because I'm just thinking now, Kat, when I've got those 30 kids sitting in front of me in the classroom, I'm thinking, of course your attention's going to be on those children who have got very clear and visible disabilities. So I was thinking there was two students in particular. There was one who was who was clinically blind, right? He had very poor sighting. You know, any printouts you did and the exam papers like had to be like size like 48 font or something like that. Is, you know, it was almost to the point where he may as well have been learning Braille, right? And we had to actually paint the school stairs bright yellow because in order to help him get around. So that was obviously an obvious thing. And there was a couple of students, of course, we had to sit at the front of the classroom who wore hearing aids. But what about those students who do have overactive ears that produce wax? And so they can't, you know, because that happens to me, you know, I had to stop wearing earplugs because my ears got plugged up with lots of stuff because I produced a lot of earwax, just TMI, everybody. But yeah, these things we don't really think about, do we, as teachers? That's a really interesting insight.
Yeah, I do definitely think about disabilities or neurodiversity that isn't immediately visible. I think, you know, we often notice autism in boys, and we notice students that have ADHD on the hyperactivity side of ADHD. And I think having been diagnosed very recently with ADHD, I feel way more attuned to neurodiversity that isn't immediately obvious. And I mean, I've been on a bit of a rampage anytime I suspect a student might have a bit of ADHD or autism. I fill out lots of forms very quickly because I feel way more in tune with students that may have overcompensated with their neurodiversity, which is what I was like when I was younger. I mean, I was very well behaved in school and I worked really hard and I got really high grades, but I did not listen in class. I couldn't listen in class. And I still cannot listen in a group setting. Just any staff briefings, this is me coming out as I cannot listen in a staff briefing. And I never have been able to listen in lectures at university. I can't do it. I never was able to listen in class. I was always that friend who would have to turn to the person next to me after we were told to get on with the task and say, wait, what are we doing? That was always my life. And I think I was able to get away with it because I performed really well. And I worked really hard and I had to work. Yeah. I don't think I realized how much I had to overcompensate to work really hard. I mean, my whole A-level was basically going to the classes, doing whatever worksheet I was told to do, but realizing that I wasn't taking in anything, and then having to go home and actually study the exact lesson that I had to do in my textbook after. And that was my entire sixth form life. But I thought that was me revising, but that was me actually dealing with having ADHD without realizing it. And I think there are a lot of students out there that I can just tell that even though they do really well, they're not listening to what I'm saying. And I can just see that their inattentiveness is really, really apparent, even though they're quiet. And yeah, I think I'm just, when it comes to sort of, neurodiversity or disabilities that aren't visible, I think I definitely have a lot more empathy and awareness, having learned about my own sort of diversity there.
So this is something that, I mean, I'm reflecting back now, just it's so hard to have patience when you're in such a high intensity job like teaching. But I think we all, educators and as teachers, need to have more patience and always the thing I realized as I was coming towards the end of my teaching career is always think of the best, not the worst. So if a kid says, what are we doing? I didn't understand. Can you repeat that? Or, don't jump to the worst, which is, oh, you weren't listening, or you were mucking about or whatever. Always jump to the possibility that there was something genuine there. So I was like, okay, would you like me to explain it in a different way? Shall I come and explain it to you one-on-one? Always offer that first, because it could be, as you say, probably 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it probably is the reason there was just something that's making it inaccessible for them.
Yeah.
So it's a really
having
good
things written
point.
down as well. I'm really guilty of, if we go on a tangent in class and then I decide that actually let's answer this question, and then I know that there are some students that probably haven't followed because there's not something on the board there. I think having things written down would have really helped me when I was younger, knowing what to do when it came to doing the independent work.
And another reason why you non-teachers listening, you need to give, teachers, the benefit of the doubt sometimes. There's all these things to cope with. You mentioned you're in a big city. which is, of course, the capital. And you're in, I believe you're, at least where you work, in a part of the world which I have family roots, which is Hackney.
Yeah.
So my dad's from Mile End, from Stepney.
Right.
So I got some Cockney blood in me, my old China.
Yeah.
And when I first started teaching, like, the kids couldn't understand me because I had quite a strong Essex Cockney hybrid accent. And I would muck about and say to the kids, come on, go up the apples and pears to be classroom,
Yeah.
So what's it? I mean, you mentioned about the noise, that a hustle and the bustle, but is it a place you nevertheless enjoy living in? Do you always wish you could be a little bit further out into the suburbs or into the rural area? So how was London for you?
Oh, London, that's a big question. I grew up in London, so I'm very familiar with the city. London is, it's a tricky one for me. I grew up in northwest London, in Hendon, kind of in the suburbs, and I've moved into the city, and I think there are so many things exciting about London that I really do love. But a lot of my friends actually have moved out of London, and so that's a little bit tricky with sort of navigating friendships. And as London is so big, even if you do live in the same city, it can be quite difficult to see people. So
it's huge.
It's huge. I still don't know South London very well. I still don't know lots of West London very well. There are so many parts of London that I just don't know. And I do work in Hackney, but I am actually moving to a school in South London now. And so I will be commuting every day all the way down south.
Wow,
which will
down
be
south.
Which will be a 50-minute journey door to door. But yeah, I feel conflicted about how I feel about London. There's many things that make me want to stay here, but I do have a feeling of wanting to explore outside of the UK. But yeah, there's lots of factors going on.
And we could probably do a whole conversation about that. And congratulations on your new job, and of course, and the people you're going to work with. I'm just so jealous. This is like the geography department from heaven, So big shout out to Rach and Nona. We know that they're listening, and my God, if you folks are like, we need a fourth or fifth member, let me know.
It's going to be the thing is going to be a good department. I'm really looking forward to getting to be in a department with people I actually know. Should be really fun.
Yeah, and not only that, but the fact that you're different enough where when you combine your efforts, you're going to have such diverse range of ideas and ways of thinking, ways of going forward, and you've got different levels of experience and expertise and stuff like that. But your worldviews and your priorities and the way that you look at life is very much aligned, that you're all going to be singing off the same hymn sheet. And I've realized I've just used two, spiritual kind of analogies there, and I'm being an atheist, department from heaven, I don't know, just, but I'm so excited. And I know that you folks are going to be a real force. And I think that also, when there's going to be those times of stress and pressure, which always happens within departments, I just feel that you're going to be like a really, really fantastic supportive group for each other. And it's, I'm so jealous. You can tell. I think the community in which you work is really, really important. And it really is.
I'm definitely looking excited to having that kind of relationship within a department.
Well, I'm going to say it now, right? If you're going to have some kind of event taking place, and my skills could be,
we'll be putting you in.
I don't mind coming to visit for a half a day or something.
It's a decolonizing geography.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm so excited for you. So congratulations on that. And which brings me on to the next talking point. So I'm actually just going to read this out, and we could take it from here, just because, again, just the way that you write is just so lovely. So we mentioned there about decolonizing geography, which we're a member of, and you've put here an experience in the world as a mixed race queer woman. You're clearly aware of how the personal is always political. God, yes. But geography education has given you a powerful lens to understand the political codes in which shape and aim to distort how we and other humans live our lives. This really sang to me. You said here, I've always rebelled against the idea of things are the way that they are, because And you're right, and you put here because that feels defeatist and depressing. Like, but this is the bit that I really love. You got here like being able to uncover the power of relations underpinning at times. This makes me feel like Neo when he can finally see the Matrix, just with a little less leather and guns. But I will tell you, Kat, and everybody now, I would so cosplay as Trinity. Like I would so.
Oh yeah, yeah, me too. I do actually. I said a little less leather, but I actually have a really great leather jacket that I've been wearing a lot lately. I don't have guns. I don't have guns, thankfully.
Yeah. No.
Like, sometimes I feel like that's such a cringy thing to say, but I honestly do feel like Neo sometimes when I think about social constructs. I think I really felt depressed about the way things are. I think growing up, I think I genuinely thought that I would be able to opt out of capitalism. I thought there would be a way that I would, that I saw the way that people were living their lives and working and things like that. And I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I don't think that's for me. I'm not going to do that. And I felt that way pretty much the whole way through university, kind of really like, oh, I don't need to think about what I'm going to do with my life because I don't know, maybe I was in denial. I was like, surely I'm going to be different to everyone else. I've decided I'm not going to be someone who works. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of intergenerational wealth, despite what this accent sounds like. And so after graduating, I really went through a very low time in which I hadn't really thought of what I wanted to do. I'd focused so much on university and my dissertation, and I just hadn't really thought about what I wanted to do with my life because I thought it was almost capitalist to have a think about what you wanted to do for your career. And so when I got to that stage, when I was 22 and I had just graduated, I was in such the graduate abyss. I was totally lost. I lived in Sheffield. I was doing a whole load of temp jobs in which I worked at a hotel one day. I worked in the Yorkshire Dales in a primary school as a pot wash for 1 week. I was doing all these different jobs, just not knowing what I was doing with my life. And I really just felt this way of like, why, like realizing firstly, I couldn't opt out of paid wage labor. And secondly, like what wage labor could I do and where were my skills? I had no experience. I really felt totally lost. And I think that kind of depressing feeling of talking to loads of people at that time and talking to a lot of adults, and everyone was just saying the same thing to me, like, oh, this is just the way things are. This is just what life is. And
yeah.
I felt, on the one hand, it was extremely privileged and naive of me to think that I would not have to participate in this world. But I think it just, the way that we live fundamentally feels weird, wrong, alien to me. The way that we divide up our communities, the way we're individuals in these weird pods, the lack of community just feels so wrong in my soul.
Was as the Hamill puts it, Assens and Lemons.
Yeah. And I feel really strongly that I don't agree with the way that we live. I'm not anti-work. I'm anti-wage work, but I want community. And I think particularly after university, as most people go through, when everyone starts to split off to their separate cities and to their separate relationships, you realize how like atomized your like life is. And I feel like capitalism divides up communities, and part of the reason why actually a lot of my friends, well, the main reason why most of my friends don't live in London is because of how expensive it is. And they've like have chosen to like live in cities that are much cheaper. And that to me feels like an injustice. And that feels unfair that people that were born, anyone should be able to live in London, but I feel a certain sense of injustice that my friends and my community that was in London has been fractured by
it's broken apart,
the expense. Yeah. Not only the expense, but also I guess how hustling and bustling London is. But yeah, that's how I feel. That's my depressing take on why I feel frustrated. But I do feel that geography, I don't want to think that it's just theory that gives me the ability to see out of it, but definitely learning more about anti-capitalism and just understanding that we don't have to live this way, even if I'm not at the moment actively doing anything anti-capitalist at the moment, but just understanding that this life doesn't have to be this way, and it hasn't always been this way. And it's not that I'm looking for some kind of like utopia in which no one works. That's not realistic. That's not what I want. But I just think that there can't be only two ways of like communism or capitalism. How in a world of possibilities, with all this diversity in the world, how can there only be two forms, two ways of living? There can't be. And I know there are lots of other, forms of living like communal areas, but I don't feel like isolating myself from the world. I don't feel like that's right. And yes, I've chosen a job that means I don't have to stare at a computer all day, because that's what I was doing before teaching in a charity. I feel like at least like critical thinking has given me a sense of, even if it's just in my mind, that I don't have to live this way, even though it might be at the time. But there are alternatives. There are forms of community, even though perhaps at the moment I don't feel like it, and COVID has really messed that up. But yeah, that's my rant.
Well, it's a good run, and it's something I really do identify with myself. Hi folks, a chance for you to recharge your brew, but also a polite prod to remind you that it's so easy to support this podcast. Simply liking, sharing, rating and reviewing means that it will get on more people's radar. Also, there are a few links down in the description which may be of mutual benefit. Please do check them out. I've always felt uncomfortable with the way, that everything is structured, site is structured, and having young kids now who, you feel like you're holding back the tide when it comes to things like not being materialistic, trying to see the intrinsic value of things rather than the extrinsic, trying to do away with things being disposable and they can just be replaced. It's all about, you're right, it is so difficult when your entire system is structured around that certain thing. And what I try and do is what can I do with the privilege and the position that I have to kind of play the system or circumnavigate it? So the things that I kind of try and do here is, for example, apart from when I was young, and I was really young, and I'm talking about in high school when I was doing like odd weekend jobs, apart from those little tiny jobs earning minimum wage, I've not worked, and I never will work for anything that's profit based. So when I was in education, that was great, that suited me fine. When I was, and then I worked for a non-profit, and now I work, for the University of Anglia in outreach. So I just don't feel like and then when there was the academization of schools came in, that I was deeply uncomfortable with that. Because folks who don't know what that happened, it was basically schools being pretty much run and taken over by corporations and businesses at a charitable kind of basis. But when that happens, you've got to question the motivations of why these organizations do that.
80% of schools are academies now.
Yeah, it's hard. So what I would do, of course, is that I would try and engage in the circular economy. So I hardly ever buy brand new stuff anymore, and I would just try and create a system where money goes around in a circle. So I'm very, very much of a subscribe to Kate Raworth's circular economy kind of donut economics kind of stuff. So I want to get Kate on this podcast, and yeah, it's my way of coping. And whenever I get enough money, and I like how Jeremy Patridge put this a few episodes ago, I like trying to pay my privilege forward. So if I get enough disposable income after all my expenses, I like to give it away to charity. I like to invest it in ethical stuff, or do something which reduces my impact on the world, so it, by proxy, it doesn't impact someone else so much. So that's my way of like using the system to kind of not contribute to the harm that it does. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I feel like I tried to do that through teaching, but I feel like the best way I feel like I can help, as along with things I do in my personal life, is allows students to have some critical thoughts and to have critical reflection over their lives. That's something that I try to instill into people, is to question things. And I feel like any success in teaching is when students have become curious about something, can have questions something. That's when I feel like I've done my job. It feels difficult sometimes when you think about the mountain of capitalism and imperialism and patriarchy that is beyond. But it's about finding, I guess, termite theory and sort of getting the small things to sort of collapse it, and that quiet politics of your everyday sort of resistance that help keep you mentally stable.
Yeah, because the system we've got, folks, you could say that we're romantic libs, all this kind of stuff, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, we've had this system now for, a couple of 100 years, at least, even more than that. And, look where it's led us. It's led us to greater inequality. It's not made life better. And this is the generation like Cat's generation is the first generation in a long while which is poorer than the generation that came before it. So there is obviously something not right with the system we have. So that's not us.
London, there's no way where I think about will I be able to live in London? Probably not.
Well, even the suburbs, like the school where I used to teach at, the house prices were so extortionate because it was on the edge of Norwich and they built new houses, none of it affordable. So kids who grew up in that area could not stay in the area because they could not afford to move to their own house. They either had to stay living with their parents or move away.
Yeah.
And in their 20s and 30s. It's like, it's not right. It's not right. Yeah. We've only got a few minutes left, Kat, which is, I really want to talk about, get this through before we do it. You're going to spill the beans now about George Michael, right? George Michael. Let's end on a positive. George Michael, right? So, because you really do connect with him. So rather than me kind of reading out what you put about George Michael, come on, spill the beans. What is it that really endears you to George Michael?
Okay, firstly, I think when I was younger, watching Wake Me Up Before You Go, that video awoke things for me. He is so beautiful and like feminine, masculine, kind of just like an in-between kind of beautiful kind of person. And that definitely got my attention. Of course, the music is incredible, beautiful voice. But really for me, I've always felt connected to George Michael because of how unashamed he is of who he is. I say it as if he's alive. I still haven't got over the fact that he's passed away. I still talk about him in the present tense. I'm going to continue doing so because in my head he lives on. But I love the way he's so emotional. And when you listen to his interviews and his music, he's so sensitive, and that's something I really connect to. I'm also quite a sensitive person. And he's so honest about who he is, warts and all. And there's something so genuine about the way he talks about himself and his life that I've always connected to. And I just think that for someone who was like a pop star and, had all that fame, he's so down to earth, or he was so down to earth. Like, he was so down to earth and so funny, but open. And I just think that kind of personality is, I feel similar to him. I think I identify myself in him. And also, like being gay, that also is a big connection there. I actually once dressed up as George Michael, like a drag kinged nice. It, and it was great. Nice. I felt amazing.
Well, with the mullet and everything as well.
Well, I had short hair at the time.
Okay.
So I made a little like foil like cross like to have my earring.
Oh,
sweet. It was like faith era, which is like very cool era. But
you gotta have faith.
Yeah.
I can't play music for copyright issues, so I just got to
Me neither. All right. Oh, I think I just can't. No, I can't sing.
Neither can I.
But I absolutely adore George Michael. I feel very close to him. And also I found out a few years ago that he was #1 when I was born.
Oh, what song was that then?
It was.
Or was it an album or?
Oh, what was it? It was Fast Love.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is it's not my favorite one, but like it's a solid one.
My favorite one. This might surprise people, but my favorite one is not like Wake Me Up or, anything like that. Wait Before You Go. My favorite one's actually the one with Mary J. Blige.
I Knew You'd Be Waiting for Me.
No, I can't think
Mary J. Blige. Oh my god, that one. Oh yes, I'm thinking of. Sorry, I thought I was thinking of everything.
Until the day that 8 times 8 times 8
yes.
is 4. That one. I can't believe I remember. That's my favorite one. I can't even remember the name of the leading song.
Is it called As?
As, that's it. As, yeah. I just like, and the music video, we just like doing that. It's like his classic his classic swaying from side to side, clicking his fingers like, he does that head thing,
Oh yeah.
I'm doing it in the camera, everybody.
Yeah. He was amazing.
The cat's like seeing George Michael through my head movement.
I I think also like his Queen performance, at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert of Somebody to Love is one of the most amazing performances ever. And it's even sadder when you realize that actually in that time when he sang that, his partner, Anselmo, had just been diagnosed, I think, with HIV. And I think either that had happened or he was waiting for those results, but he was also waiting for the results to see if he also had HIV. And so, he had just found love for the first time. And then that was being taken away from him, and him singing that is just so incredibly emotional at the funeral, or the tribute concert of someone who had also died from that disease. So yeah, I think there's something so emotional and so I think it's that beauty and pain that I also see in George Michael that I've always identified with and love. So yeah, that's a big thing for me.
I'm glad we got to end on that quite high about George Michael. I was thinking, like, for me, the same kind of thing for me was like David Bowie. So yeah, I do miss David Bowie. And like for a lot of the same. But what I really like about what you said there as well is like, I think when you get such a big celebrity like that, people are more unforgiving about the way they are as human beings, and, just because he was a world famous pop star didn't mean that he wouldn't have problems and he had to be completely perfect. And almost goes with what I always call the visibility paradox, where if you're a certain character, you have a certain trait, a certain protective characteristics, you've got to be on your best behavior, otherwise you get completely torn and ripped down to pieces. And
he really took it in his stride though, and he, like, the way he dealt with all those criticisms and all the the homophobic shaming, really, that's what it was. It was it was total homophobia, really, what he experienced. But at the time it wasn't necessarily viewed that way. It was viewed as, you did this naughty thing and therefore we're going to shame you. And the way he dealt with that, I felt, was really admirable. Like in his interviews, he just said, that's what I did. And yes, that wasn't the best idea, but that it is what it is. And he had his song Outside, which is hilarious.
Oh yeah, and, let's go outside. As his way of saying, look, I'm owning it, deal with it, and I'm also putting it in your face.
Exactly. Like, he took responsibility, but he wasn't ashamed of himself. And I think I really respected the way he dealt with, I don't know, obviously I don't know him at all. I didn't know him at all. But the way that he publicly talked about mental health and homophobia, I think I really connect to. And I think that sort of down to earth, genuine kind of energy, I think, is really powerful and something that I really connect to and want to be around. So I think we could definitely both agree that the folks like George Michael, David Bowie, they are exceptionally empowering human beings, and we've both, rest in peace, both. We thank you for what you've done for the queer community, both of you. Yeah.
So let's finish off with We Are All Geographers. And before the 50th episode special, which you were in, because it was the Coffee and Geography conversations, which is brilliant.
So with double whammy.
So we got a double helping of Cat, everybody. Yay! That we had Shanique on. Shanique Harris before that on the episode 49, which was brilliant. So we're having a string of Decolonizing Geography folks on, which is brilliant. Now, Shanique came up with a word that actually has been said before. So this is the first time in Coffee and Geography history that we've had a word come up twice, which is absolutely fine. That's no problem at all, because what you may say may be different from what the person said last time. And that's the word language. So what you are going to do now, Kat, is for 30 seconds is just
Oh my God.
riff however you like with the word language.
Language.
Yeah.
Right
so
now.
it could be geographically based. It could be, it's low stakes.
All right. Anything at all I want to say?
Yeah, for 30 seconds.
Right.
When you're ready, I'll start the time.
Okay. All right. Language does not only have to be spoken through your words. Language is something that transcends, I think, noise sometimes. Language can be through your body, through a look with someone, through the way you move together. And I think that kind of energy between people, a vibe that you have, is also language. And it doesn't, language does not only have to be spoken. That was
brilliant.
That makes sense at all.
That was brilliant. That was fantastic. And what's really going to be interesting, I think, if I can't remember, so find the episode where the person, I'll put it in the show notes, and you can compare. I bet there'll be some overlap, but I really, really do say that. And that's actually really poignant what you said, because of course, what you were saying a bit earlier about with noise and sensitivity with your ears now and stuff like that actually language, you can communicate in more than just speaking, and through noise, through the different sounds. I like that. That's great. I think you did really well. Okay, but you get to have your turn now. So I bet you've wanted to do this for a long time, surely, is to give a word to someone else.
Yes. Okay, I think the word I'm going to choose today is genuine.
Yeah, genuine. And that's nice, because I have always thought of you, and you certainly come across to me as a very genuine human being.
Thank you very much.
Which is amazing. Okay, we're going to do that, folks, next week, listening for the word genuine. Right, so shout outs then. Who are we going to say hi to?
Oh, who are we going to say hi to? Anyone at all?
Anyone at all?
Going to say hi to Nona from Decolonizing Geography and Rachel, because I'm joining them in their school.
Woo!
Shout out to my parents, my family, everyone. No, I'm joking. Shout out to all the students that I'm sure will be listening to this.
Yeah, I must admit, like I would have done the same. It's like, oh yeah, I was on this podcast, if you want to listen. It's like cool. And you're on you have a Twitter account, so and your handle is?
It's cat_Poh, I think.
Yep. And so folks, if you want to connect with Cat through if you've identified with the things that you've heard, or through geography or whatever like that, and so you can George, most certainly, or George Michael, then there you go. That's how you can connect with Cat online. Well, Cat, this has been an absolute delight. I wish we had more time today, but we've managed to squeeze this in. But you're a very, very busy person, and I believe you've got something else happening today, which I hope that goes well. And I just can't wait to see you again. I already think of you as a really good friend, and as I said, I'm really envious of where you're going to be in September. But I just know that you folks are going to be amazing. But 3 amazing people in one geography department. That's just going to be like so cool.
It's going to be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you had fun. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe so more stories and experiences can drop into your favourite podcast app. If you fancy being a guest or have any feedback, follow us on Twitter at coffeegeogpod and send us a DM. Or you could email coffeeandgeog@geogramblings.com. Until next time, keep geogging.